Welcome back to our channel. Help us print our next issue by buying us a coffee. Thank you for supporting Archetype.
My name is Doni Eve. I write under the author name DK Eve. I'm from a small town on Vancouver Island called Souk. It's just outside of Victoria, and I grew up here. I was the fifth generation of my family to live here on Vancouver Island. And at some point I did leave. I lived in Saskatchewan and Ottawa and Montreal. But like many people who live there, I got tired of the winters and returned home and at the time, my mother said I'd come back to the Souk River to spawn. So I actually ended up doing that. I was married shortly thereafter, have one son, and we also have, I'll introduce her, Bonnie. She's right behind me. Oh no, she's sleeping in the chair. You can't see her. A 2-year-old golden retriever. So that's my life. I live in like I said, a small town. I like to garden, spend some time in the sun, and go for lots of walks with my dog.
Wow, that's awesome. You've lived in so many places across Canada. That's very interesting. I don't know if I know very many people that have lived in as many places as you have. So yeah, that's awesome. Would you be able to answer how you kind of began writing, or when it clicked for you that it was really something that you wanted to pursue?
I've always loved writing, and as a career, I wanted to be a journalist. So I worked for my local newspaper when I was in high school, and then eventually I ended up going to university in Ottawa to study journalism, and did work as a journalist for many years. Then when I came back to BC, I worked for journalists for a short time, but then got into a career in public service. I always missed creative writing though, even though journalism isn't really creative writing, I did want to explore it. And so around 2014, I ran into some people locally who were part of a writers group. And I didn't know there was a writers group here. And I went to a meeting and found so much support and interest and enthusiasm from other writers who were all just learning themselves. So I tried writing a few short stories, tried some pretty bad poetry, and eventually with practice and with support and with feedback from other writers, I was able to, I think, improve a little bit. I've definitely grown since then as a writer, and I love to, mostly explore short stories and poetry. But it was really that local writers group, and here it's called the Souk Writers Collective. But I know that many authors across the country have that local support, and that's really, I think, what spurred me along.
Thanks, Doni. I know we talked a little bit before about how our processes have been kind of similar and really craving that creative outlet. So I really appreciate you telling us about your journey towards that. I can totally empathize. And yeah, I agree. I think having a community of writers locally or even remotely can be so important to just the overall process of writing. And I mean, I feel like it's always a journey. Could you tell our readers a little bit more about your inspiration behind Peach Pie, which is your story that will be featured in Archetype, and how it kind of came to life for you?
Well, that particular story, I know that they always tell authors never write about your own revenge fantasies, because and never put people or characters into your stories that you do want to get revenge on. But that was spurred from a personal experience where I had a relationship and it ended, and I guess I felt really burnt, and at the time was having these very elaborate fantasies about how to get back at the people I felt that hurt me. So so that was part of the inspiration. And I think it's a bit of a universal theme where people you get hurt, you get spurned, and you really you do want to do something about it. And it's very difficult sometimes to do that in real life. And so writing gives you the outlet to really explore that. And I know I like to explore the real depths of human emotions. So as a person living my life, I probably don't go to those extremes, but it's so fun to explore how far you can go in emotion wise with a character in your story. And that was part of what I wanted to do as well. How far would this protagonist go in terms of the revenge that that they wanted to inflict on the person that hurt them?
That is fascinating. Thank you so much for being open and sharing that with us. I agree that writing from your own experiences can really drive the best kind of creation. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. Next, I wanted to ask if there's anything in particular that really kind of motivates you to write. And I'll let that kind of be as open-ended as you want it to be.
Yeah, well, I live in a really, really beautiful area, and it's close to the ocean. There's a river, there's mountains. And we have some really interesting weather, lots of rain. You get really misty, moody winters and falls, and very green springs with a lot of wildlife and gorgeous summers. And that setting, I think, is my biggest inspiration. I do draw on the setting quite a bit in terms of this area of southern Vancouver Island. It is very unique in Canada, and I just feel so fortunate to live here. But it's an inspiration all the time. I'm fortunate to live in an area that's very close to nature and spend a lot of time walking in the woods or by the ocean. And it's just such a great inspiration. And I find that too locally. But both artists and writers are really, really inspired by the geography where we live. The other thing is, and I think I mentioned it earlier, is just that opportunity to explore like how the depths of emotion, whether it's grief or joy or other types of emotions. Those are the kinds of things that I find very inspiring as well. And like many writers, I steal from others. I steal their experiences. I hear things that my friends tell me or others, or even things sometimes you hear in public, whether it's the news or social media or something. You hear of weird little events or something that gives you an idea. So it might be, like I said, somebody describing an event or something that happened to them, and that can set off a whole trigger or cascade of ideas. And that's where I like to go, and then explore those emotions along the way.
That's great. I am very jealous that you're out on the West Coast. I've never been, and I've definitely always wanted to go visit because it is most definitely one of the most beautiful parts of Canada. So are there any tips or tricks that you would like to share with our readers that may also be aspiring writers and seeking to have their own work published one day?
Well, the best advice that I ever received that I find really helpful is just get your story out. Write it as quickly and badly as you can for your first draft, and then go back to it. But don't fret over your first few words or your first few sentences or your first page. Just get that story out and then go back and look at it. Let it simmer for a while before you go back and give it a little bit more of a stir. And the other one is feedback. I have benefited so much from feedback from my fellow authors, and authors can give you the best feedback because they know as writers how to give feedback and what to do. You can always ask your family, you can always ask your friends, and they're going to tell you that, oh, it's wonderful, or oh, I didn't really like that. But that's not helpful in terms of feedback. Get feedback from your fellow authors, and don't sweat the story. Just get it out as quickly and even badly as you can, and then that gives you something to work out.
Yeah, definitely. I think the editing process is so vital to getting an end piece that is really where you want it to be. So thank you for that. I think that's really great. My last question for you is just if there's anything else that you may want our readers or audience to know about you or take away from this little Meet the Author tidbit.
Well, I think if somebody has always wanted to write, then go ahead and do it. If you didn't have experience before, it's a craft like any others. You can learn the tools of the trade, and what happens is the more you do it, the better you work, the better your work becomes. So if there's someone out there who's thinking, I'd love to write, but I could never write this, because I still think that all the time. I read something that blows me away and I wonder, will I ever be like that? And I, of course, think I won't be, but keep working at it. And no matter what starting point you're at, just keep working at it, because I think it's inside all of us to tell a story. We're natural born storytellers. It's part of human nature to share stories. So there are oral traditions and storytelling that goes back centuries and millennia. Like, this is something that's ingrained in our nature. So we've all got that within us to tell that story. Don't be afraid. Just do it, and find your writing community, and you will enjoy your work.
That was so beautifully said. Thank you so much. I think that is a great way to put the craft of writing, is that we're all natural born storytellers. You're so right. Well, thank you so much, Doni. And thank you to our viewers and our audience for helping us along on this journey.
Well, thank you, Melinda, and thanks to Ali, the editor of Archetype, and everyone else behind the scenes for this opportunity. It's a terrific magazine, and can't wait to see more.